Hello, thank you for clicking on babies, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and business. And I'm not just using a baby as clickbait here. I'm not just trying to be a Bond villain with instead of a cat, I'm just stroking a baby. Um, my partner and I have just had twins, so we man mark one. Well, they're identical girls, so girl mark. But I'll go into that in a minute anyway. So first things first, I hope everybody's doing okay in these unprecedented times. That's the only time I'm going to say unprecedented, but I want to say it once. And this is obviously all for a good cause, and I just wanted to say something that's kind of connected a little bit to that cause for the Samaritans. So please donate to the Samaritans. I've got a rough structure, but kind of the heart of this talk is kind of not about being in control as much. So there's a rough 3-point structure, but I'm not in control necessarily of where it's going. So there hopefully will be a clear message from each one, and this will then hopefully be a demonstration of not needing to be in control of necessarily where things are going, and hopefully in some way could be useful. So B1, babies. So my partner and I have just had twins, as I briefly mentioned there, and it's these big kind of life moments that really help you learn about yourself, like what's happening with this COVID-19 situation. Granted, we may have known a little bit that a pandemic could have come at some point, but we weren't prepared for it, and no one knew when it was going to come. And actually, a lot of before we had children and things, I was kind of torturing myself a little bit because I overthink about things in a lot of way, like what if this, what if that, and you're trying to come up with scenarios in which you would solve these different possible outcomes. And then something happens, it's like, oh, it's twins. Oh, I didn't think about that. Not prepared for that, and you kind of have a little bit of a breakdown. But out of the back of that, it's so positive, and now I can't imagine what it would have been like if we didn't have twins. Like, it's such a good thing. And the first time I looked at them, all of those thoughts that I'd kind of worried about from when I was just worried about having kind of one child, none of those happened. So all of those things I was worrying about weren't actually reality, or the way that my mind was going to respond to something. And that's what's kind of interesting with this pandemic, is especially when you're isolated, and this kind of has its challenges as well in that sense where you can't get help from other people and things. But you can get in your own head a little bit. So it's kind of the important thing with this babies, first B, is get out of your own head. And especially if you're looking at kind of things on social and stuff, negative thoughts, you don't have to think that way. Just because someone else is thinking that way, or something's got 1 million likes, that doesn't give it more reinforcement that it's true. It's all down to you. And just what specifically helped me with this is, once it happened, and I think it's particularly something a lot of parents respond to things, is that's that pure commitment once it's happened. And when it happens, you know it's the right time, because you're committed to it in such a way that you can't imagine it being any other thing. And that's the kind of thing with just how you follow the guidelines and stuff like that, just committing to them, and then you find the way of positively growing with it. And, a lot of us watching this now, we're privileged part of society compared to a lot of the populace. So there is so much hope to bring out of this. It's May the 4th today. So much hope from this, and that the positives will come from this, and it's those big life moments that the biggest positives come from this. Number 2, second B, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. From not being in control that much of situations, not needing to, that not really being the kind of point in it really, is the range of ways in which things can be solved. So the interesting thing with Jiu-Jitsu is that it's a martial arts principle that can take on different opposing forces. So the only book I've read in isolation so far is something that I want to read to these two about, is The Shih Tzu Who Knew Jiu-Jitsu, and it's kind of about a little Shih Tzu that takes on a big bulldog. And it doesn't just take on that bulldog through using the same negative power that bulldog's trying to put on this little Shih Tzu. That Shih Tzu doesn't just punch back. It uses Jiu-Jitsu to use the strength of the bulldog to submit, as in grab that bulldog's arm or something like this. For example, I wanted to call one of these twins Ronda, after Ronda Rousey, who's expert in arm bars, and it's not about necessarily even hurting the person. It's just about being able to submit that person, take on that force in a way that you've just nullified their, in this sense, that their negative imposing force. And an interesting thing, slightly linked to it, but not quite, is saw on Twitter this, you may have seen this, a sheep with loads of wool because it had kind of escaped or whatever into the wild and should have been killed by wolves, but hadn't because it had so much wool that the wolves couldn't get through to the body of the sheep. So it's kind of this soft that took on this hard, and it's kind of like that's what jiu-jitsu is like a little bit. And like this little Shih Tzu in the new jiu-jitsu, it used this positive force, and there is no one way of doing it either, which is the really cool thing. And what I like about kind of the creative industry, there is no wrong, there is no right. There is just something that can get to the destination, whether that is whatever that destination is. So the third one, coming back to, and like a lot of these talks kind of link back to business, it's kind of taking in that first B, the babies, that control element, not really requiring control, knowing that you'll be able to grow with this and develop with this and get to a kind of destination that you never thought was possible. And then the second B, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is not having a set way of doing this and not knowing that you need to behave in a set way, knowing that you don't have to be influenced by other things as well. There can be a technique to do it, which way that best suits you. That's the same in business, and my hope is that because we don't go to all our little corporate bubbles and things, and we're at home and we can use these big life moments and we can use our unique elements, mixed ways of doing things, that those solutions will come into our business problems, and hopefully we can solve things like we perhaps never would have been able to before with other big challenges like climate change and things. And that's really just the hopeful message that I wanted to give with kind of what I'm going through at the moment, from this shift in how I was thinking with the big baby's life moment, but that mixed way in which you can just all be unique to come out of this in a positive way. And yeah, that's it really. And please donate to the Samaritans and enjoy the other talks that are on this platform. Cool, thanks a lot.